and salutations, my dearest friends. My name is Samantha, and today I'm going to be talking about my all-time favorite books. This is my top 5 list, people. It was hard to narrow it down. Hello, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be talking about my favorite books in this video, and I'm so excited. It's going to be a little bit repetitive for those of you who have watched my videos in my channel before. I've talked about all of these books a dozen times. Like, I am not shy about the books that I love. I have a mixture of contemporary and historical romances, so let's just hop right in. I've stayed pretty consistent in what my favorite book is. Nothing has really been able to top it. Again, if you've watched my channel before, I'm sure you know what I'm about to say. When I think of my #1 favorite book, like I just have to pick one, Again the Magic by Lisa Kleypas. I just love it so much. I talk it to death. I know I have so many videos just on this book. This is just pure perfection in my eyes. Just pure perfection. I forgot I had this in here. What I want in a book is in this book. So this is what the step back looks like. I'm a sucker for pretty covers. Also so special to me. I keep this as a bookmark. My friend Avery, I will link her channel down below. She drew this for me one year for Christmas, and I treasure it so much. This is a second chance historical romance. It is a prequel to the Wallflower series by Lisa Kleypas, which is really popular. You don't have to read that series in order, but I recommend that you do because it's just more enjoyable that way. Romance in this features Lady Eileen and McKenna. Deals a lot with class differences in the Regency time period. So McKenna and Eileen grow up together and they're childhood sweethearts, but their romance is pretty forbidden because they come from completely different classes. I believe Eileen is a daughter of an earl, and then McKenna is just a stable boy, which at that time is pretty forbidden. Her father does not agree with their romance, and something happens where they are torn apart and McKenna is sent away. He does have a little bit of a grudge, so years later he is coming back as a self-made man and is back with a vengeance. He really wants to show Eileen everything that she's missed, so it is a pretty angsty second chance romance in that sense. There's also a second subplot in this book that follows another romance that I think is really beautiful and I enjoyed a lot. If you are reading this book, there are some trigger warnings for miscarriage and alcohol addiction, just so you're aware. But I mean, wow. This book is perfect. Everything I could want in this book. I loved the angst. I loved the romance, the chemistry, the steam. Our hero, McKenna, my favorite hero of all time, and that's saying something because I like a lot of Lisa Kleypas books, but like this one to me just is superior. Can't get enough of it. I feel like I had to talk about this one the most because it's my #1, but let's go ahead and move on. Let me talk about the other historical romance that I have on my list, and that is Indigo by Beverly Jenkins. I don't have the pretty cover. I'm so sad. I cannot find the original hardcover of this book. Ugh, I'm looking though. I am looking. Another book that I have reread multiple times, twice on audiobook and once physically. The audiobook is amazing. Like, to me, this is the definition of soulmates and a perfect historical romance. Kind of historical romances, or if you're a beginner to the genre, I highly recommend this one because just the writing and the chemistry and the romance is so beautiful and well crafted. Like, it's perfect. This book follows our main heroine Hester, who works for the Underground Railroad, and that's how she ends up meeting our hero under his moniker the Black Daniel. And our hero is known as the Black Daniel because he's kind of like a vigilante for African American slaves. He is badly injured and he ends up staying at a safe house, and Hester nurses him back to health, and it follows their romance. Beverly Jenkins is such a phenomenal author. I could do a whole video on just her books because I've given all of the books that I've read from her 5 stars. I really enjoy her writing. Her characters are just so well fleshed out. Her romances are so beautiful. Like, I feel like she's so good at writing like true soulmates, like finding each other, and that's how I feel about this book. To me, this is the most romantic romance I've read because you can just feel the love the characters have for one another. Spoilers, but this has one of the sweetest marriage proposals I've ever read about. Like, love it so much. Sister is by far one of my favorite heroines ever. She is such a strong, independent heroine. You get to read about the romance, but you also get to read about her individual journey, her feeling more confident about herself, and she's just such an amazing heroine. Highly recommend this book. To be completely honest, if I had to pick like favorite authors, Beverly Jenkins and Lisa Kleypas, amazing. I love all their books that I've read. I constantly give their books 5 stars, and it was really hard to like narrow this list down. And my third pick is another Lisa Kleypas book. This is Sugar Daddy, and this is actually one of her few contemporary books. This is the first in the Travis Brothers series. In this story, her mother passes away and she has to care for her younger sibling at a very young age and be responsible not only for herself as she's growing up, but also for her younger siblings. It's a love triangle, so it first starts off with her childhood sweetheart, Hardy. They grow up together and they have this instant chemistry and they're constantly drawn to each other. As they get older, Hardy does leave and she has to kind of stand on her own and provide for her and her sister. I know the title is kind of misleading. This is not a sugar baby, sugar daddy romance at all. The way that Sugar Daddy kind of comes in is that she ends up meeting a pretty wealthy older man who actually has connections and ties to her mother and her past. Older, and as she gets more clarification about her past, she also ends up meeting Gage and forms a romance, and it is a love triangle between Hardy, Gage, and Liberty. You do have to read this romance in order because the second book, Blue-Eyed Devil, which I know is like everyone's favorite in the series, that follows the guy that she doesn't pick. She does end up with one of them, and the second book follows the person she doesn't end up with. So I know a lot of people like the second book, but this one to me I love so much because I adored Liberty. I don't have to relate to a heroine or to a character to enjoy a romance, but Liberty is one of those characters that I just identified with so much, that she was finding herself and finding her place in life, and even how close she was to her younger sister. I resonated in so much of that. I just really enjoyed the romance, but I also enjoyed her personal journey, and it was so well written, and I love who she ended up with. I thought they were perfect together. So yeah, definitely highly recommend. And I know I picked 2 Lisa Kleypas books, but I couldn't pick one. Okay, so the 3 books that I've talked about so far have been on my favorites list for years. They just remain at the top. Nobody has been able to knock them aside, but I have a new favorite book that I just recently talked about, and that is Pool Boy by Nikki Sloan. This isn't necessarily a new release, but I personally just read it. I have a whole video. It's literally titled I Found My New Favorite Book, where I ranted and raved and gushed and loved on this book. So if you want to hear me talk more about it, it's on my channel. Like I said, I have talked about all these books before, so I will link everything down below. Shameless plug. Pool Boy is the second book in the Nashville Neighborhood series. I don't think you need to read the series in order because I didn't read in order and I understood everything that was going on. This is a forbidden romance. It's an age gap romance with an older woman, younger man. Heroine Erica is going through a rough time. She recently gets divorced. She finds out that her husband is cheating on her. She decides that she's going to get a divorce and that she's really just going to focus on herself. So one of the first things that she does is get a boob job so she can feel a little bit more comfortable in her body. After the surgery, she's feeling pretty cute and decides to tan topless in her backyard. What she doesn't realize is that her pool boy is there and he is seeing everything, and he likes what he sees. So her pool boy catches her tanning topless and they have this really steamy interaction with one another. They're very drawn to one another, but it's pretty forbidden because not only because of their age gap, but also because he is her best friend's son. Yeah. He is an artist and likes to perform and sing, and she works for a record label, and they end up also working together. So there's a lot of forbidden aspects to their romance, but it is so beautiful. Number one, the best steam. Loved their chemistry so freaking much. What was great about this book was that they honestly felt, again, like soulmates. That's a common theme with some of my favorite books. I just love that chemistry between characters, and this book wasn't just about like the steamy bits, although those were pretty amazing. You could really feel like these characters belong with each other in like a real life perspective. There was so much in this book and they constantly choose each other, and I thought that was so beautiful. Like, honestly one of the most well-written, beautiful, heartfelt love stories that I've read, and I just can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop thinking about it. We are on the last book, and it was so hard to narrow down this list, but I knew this book needed to be on there, and that is Strange Grace by Tessa Gratton. This is actually a YA fantasy book, which is pretty different from all of my other picks, but there's just something about this book that I always think about. Like, the writing to me was so beautiful. I have also reread this book numerous times. That's also how I know something is a favorite, if I reread it over and over again. This book, it follows a town that has quite literally made a deal with the devil. The town is quite prosperous and healthy because years and years ago, one of their ancestors, who was a witch, made a deal with the devil that every few years they would sacrifice a boy into what they called the slaughter moon. Because of that, the devil is going to provide for them and keep the town prosperous. Well, something has gone wrong with the bargain. Each year comes closer and closer, wanting more boys to be sent in this woods, and they realize that what they were told isn't exactly the truth. So it follows their journey, but it also follows their romance. This is a polyamorous romance. All three characters are in a relationship with one another. There's no steam in this book because it is a YA, but I think the connection with the characters is absolutely beautiful. Typically not someone who gravitates towards fantasy books, but this one is absolutely one of my favorites. It was delicious. Does that make sense? The author's writing is very decadent and lyrical and magical that you can't just help but love it. I really need to read more from this author because she just like interwove this story with so much beauty and fantasy and longing and interest, and it was just, yeah, all the buzzwords. It was amazing. I hope you guys find some books to read and love. If you've read any of these books, please let me know down below, or if we have similar reading tastes, recommend some books that you think I will like, and I will definitely read them. Anyways, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend with me. It means the absolute world to me. I hope you guys are all staying happy and healthy, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!